Hi everyone, and welcome to this special edition of Studio Live. I'm Gideon Hyde. I'm the co-founder at Studio Space. I'm very excited to dive into today's conversation about how to 10x your corporate growth using AI. So, as we know, AI is rapidly reshaping the business landscape, particularly in how it enables organizations to work smarter, faster, more efficiently, from streamlining workflows to generating content at scale. AI has proven to be a game changer in unlocking productivity gains and helping big brands grow. But with such rapid advancements, it's crucial to understand both the potential and the challenges that come with AI adoption, especially when it comes to human collaboration with this technology. So today we're joined by a stellar panel of industry experts, all of which are on the Studio Space marketplace, and they'll be sharing their experiences and insights on how to leverage AI to its fullest potential. By the end of the session, you'll have actionable strategies to take back to your teams and start driving impactful change. Very quickly, to set the scene on AI and its business impact, we know over the past few years, AI has truly transformed the way companies approach tasks, from automating processes to driving data-led decision-making. Case studies are showing that businesses that effectively integrate AI into operations can see productivity gains increase of up to 40%. It really is a game changer. And I've been in the innovation space for 20 years, and this was probably, one of the biggest revolutions we've seen since the internet became widespread. It's breaking the VC model in the US, which is very interesting. So OpenAI, the creators of ChatGPT, are now looking to raise a whopping $6.5 billion, which is 40 times the size of most VC funds. And if they do that, they would achieve a 150 billion valuation, which as a startup completely, blows up the kind of unicorn $1 billion benchmark. The training for AI is skyrocketing. Costs to train large language models are getting up to the billion mark. NVIDIA, who make 80% of the world's large language model chips, they saw their market cap go up by 2.5 trillion over the last 2 years. Which is now forcing Alphabet, Amazon, Meta, Microsoft to start developing their own chips. So this world of AI is immense. AI is more than just a productivity tool. It's changing how we think about work itself. And this is where our conversation today will focus. So we're going to bring it back down to earth from those dizzying heights of what's happening on a global scale, and to really look at how companies can harness AI not only to boost output, but also to ensure that the human workforce is empowered to work alongside these tools, maximizing both human creativity and AI-driven efficiency. So, no further ado, we're going to jump into some panel introductions. I'd love to introduce you to our wonderful panel who are going to be here with us for the next hour, who are going to share their experiences with AI in the context of boosting productivity. So first of all, we're going to start with Joe Burke, who's the co-founder of Oh My Agency. Over to you, Joe.
Hey all, good morning. As Gideon just said, he took my introduction there. I'm Joe Burke, co-founder of Oh My. We're a design and technology studio. We build brands, websites and apps for a whole range of businesses and been doing it for over 10 years now. Really happy to be on the panel today. AI sort of, as Gideon said, 20 years in the industry, things have moved so quickly, and before we know it and look back on the past 2 or 3 years, how we work has completely changed. So yeah, really happy to be on the panel today to talk about that and dig into it in a bit more detail.
Thank you, Joe. Stuart, do you want to say a bit about your role and your agency?
You didn't steal my intro, that's good. So my name is Stuart White. I am Chief Product Officer at Impact Sense. It's a very lofty way of saying that I essentially look after delivery from a couple of different perspectives. So my role is focused on the kind of quality and the integrity of what we do, because there's a big issue in the market research world. We are a full kind of service market research consultancy. So we help clients to sort of answer sort of key questions. And the other side of my role is looking at how we can kind of stay ahead of the curve. Obviously, Gen AI and AI in general is a big part of that, and increasingly so. We've been looking at it for a number of years now, but Gen AI has kind of accelerated that. So it's my job to make sure that we're using it appropriately, and kind of avoiding the pitfalls that hit so many people as well.
Thanks, Stuart. Jessica, over to you.
Hi everyone, I'm Jessica Mullen. I'm Chief Innovation and Design Officer at Create Future. I look after our strategy, design and product teams. So we are a digital consultancy and delivery partner. There's over 500 of us across 5 UK locations. I'm talking to you from a not very sunny Edinburgh this morning. So we partner with clients on everything from designing new propositions and go-to-market strategies for lots of financial services organizations. Specifically, we will design and build logistics platforms for companies like Agreco, but we also provide, 100-person teams to help Fanjo, for example, one of our biggest clients, roll out gaming platforms across the US. So quite a broad range of services. AI has been a huge focus for us, not surprisingly, both in terms of products that we are building for our clients, but also in terms of how we're using it in the business, which I think is going to be mostly what we talk about today. So we like to say we are powered by people, but accelerated by AI.
Thanks, Jessica. First question then we're going to look at are the fundamentals of AI and growth. So we know AI is evolving quickly. What should we keep in mind when discussing how to drive corporate growth with AI? And how can we ensure that humans are empowered and equipped to work alongside AI rather than feel like they're competing with it? So, Joe, over to you first. You made some interesting points about empowering people. Maybe you could talk about that and expand upon it a bit.
Yes, no, this is a really good question because I think, especially for a lot of graduates and new people entering these industries at a time where they've just, got their qualifications and then suddenly what they studied for has all changed, and what they expected of a career might look very different. So when we talk about empowerment, I think it's getting people equipped as early as possible to be able to almost deal with the inevitable, because the change is coming. And, the more knowledge and the more information you have about it, the less, scary it might feel. And I found a lot of the people that we've worked with who are early in their careers have felt that fear. And I think the more we talk about it, the more we see that subside. So I think it's really about encouraging, embracing it as early as you can, making it part of your work, just getting to understand it and embrace it from that point of view. And I think empowerment is important, but it's also being conscious about how you introduce it to your business, because regardless of what people say, it is going to replace jobs. And some people will see it, okay, this is great, this is going to help me to do my work better. And for some people, it is going to replace their job. So it's really careful about, how we introduce that and at what level, what speed, getting people up to terms with that, because the big changes are going to come. So that's where I've really been looking at it and helping some of our clients get to grips with it, and how we introduce it in our business.
Thanks, Joe. Jessica, I know that Create Future's been doing a lot around AI. You spoke about it in your intro, using it in your engineering processes, looking at it with your team and so forth. What's your experiences and views on AI and how it's integrating with the human workforce?
Yeah. As Joe was saying, it's huge and it's coming. So you've got to kind of embrace it. But definitely the how you go about that is as important as what you're doing. Just giving people tools is not enough. So we've been looking at it from actually, where do people spend most time? So if I just talk about our business, if we think about everything that, whether you're in our people team, finance team, through to, our hundreds of engineers, like where do they actually spend most of their time? And then how can AI help them to make that easier, faster, so that they can spend time on higher value tasks. That's the ideal. So it's not about, we've been really clear with the messaging. It's not about, we're not rolling out AI so that we can cut our work, our number of people. This is about empowering our people to be more efficient. So yeah, whether it's Office Suite, like Google Slides, for example, being able to quickly produce layouts, whether it's collaboration software like Miro, for example, using AI in Miro. Obviously, the biggest thing for us is the coding and using it in for the
Yeah, of
engineers.
course.
So yeah, so we've you mentioned 40% in our experiments. We've actually approached it in a very structured way, and we've done a whole load of experiments with our teams. And yeah, 40% absolutely we've achieved in terms of spending time like modernizing code, for example, a 20% reduction for feature building. But interestingly, where we've done training beforehand and we've got people comfortable with AI as a concept and as the tools, so kind of intuitive AI users, those numbers go up even more. So we're talking like 65% reduction in time spent. So I think that's a really interesting aspect of it.
So just to build on that quickly, Jessica, before we go on to Stuart, I know that Create Future is huge on training and your academy. So have you now kind of
Yes,
put AI into your training as a standard module for different roles in your business?
we have. We've gone even further than that. We have a whole Amplify LinkedIn learning pathway that we've just started rolling out across the business. So we actually created bespoke content for that. So we filmed in the office over a couple of days and designed a course. And that's right from the basics of what is Gen AI, where did it come from, what are the ethics, all the way through to something that's, for more experienced AI users. Yes, it's been really, really important for us. And our goal is that by February 2025 that we have almost 100% of the business having completed that first module.
And just to couple off then, so your designers might go and apply AI in one set of directions with one set of tools, and your engineers might apply it in a different set, but they've all got a
Yes,
fundamental understanding of what AI can do and, of course, its limitations as well.
exactly. So it's bringing everybody up to um,
Yeah,
the same level of confidence and understanding, and then we're developing capability specific pathways. So yeah,
yeah.
if you're a designer, this is how you would use it. If you're an engineer, but also we're seeing the teams embracing like marketing. I mean, they've embraced it probably faster than any other team. Um, so it's not just the developers; it's actually
Yeah.
everybody in the business.
Well, we'll come on to that. I'm keen to hear how marketing are using it, but we'll come on to that one. Stuart, how about you guys? So you're, obviously, research and business insight and so forth. How are you finding AI and integrating AI into some of your business processes?
I think it's been, I mean, we have kind of an internal and external perspective on it, to be honest. So internally, I mean, in the market research world, I'm used to coming from kind of digital agencies. Market research moves a lot slower than the digital agency kind of world. So it's been a really interesting adjustment, I think, for the industry at large because they've not really had such a seismic shift before. I mean, if you look at kind of other industries, you've had disruptive influence coming in and kind of changing the game. Market research has been sort of largely left alone. So it's been really interesting to see it come in and actually make us rethink the way that we do things and actually look at it as an opportunity space. I mean, if you think about it in kind of real terms, we always want to do qualitative research, people, because we get depth, but we have to do quant because you want scale and confidence. AI allows us to kind of flip that and basically get qualitative level insights at scale. So you can
Okay.
still get that rigor, but without the cost and expenditure of that being ludicrous because you have to do one-to-one interviews with everything. You have to you have so many more opportunities to engage participants and get those deeper insights.
That's really
So from that,
fascinating, actually. I'm
yeah,
an ex-researcher, quantum qual, and you always have to separate, didn't you? You always have to say,
exactly.
how many people think X, and you have to go and do qual to say, well, why do they think X? And it needs to be a separation of those two worlds. So are you seeing those worlds coming together?
Totally collided. Even in, I mean, in the fundamentals of, I mean, I did a talk on Tuesday. And I put a slide up saying that like the future of market research is not a survey. Like surveys will die because as an interface, it's based on the most unnatural interaction you can have with a person, which is basically someone stood in front of you with a clipboard asking you questions which aren't in your natural cognitive flow. So that whole way of thinking will shift. It's not fully going to shift in the next sort of year or two, but it will fundamentally shift, and we'll go back to much more sort of thinking, you know, ground up of what we try and do in qual, which is preserving the natural environment and trying to keep things as natural as possible. So that idea can come into quant because it's got a lot of freedom to do that.
Okay, that's fascinating. We're definitely going to dig into that one. That's really interesting. That's a huge productivity gain. So I put my teeth in.
With our clients as well, I think externally, it's been really interesting because we work with agencies and businesses and brands. We kind of have the inside track. So we kind of have the cheat sheet to see the reality of how they're using it on both sides of the coin without the kind of marketable language of like leading the pack and all that stuff. But I think what we've seen is that businesses that are doing it well are not adopting the kind of carpet bombing approach. I think it's really, really easy for a business to just throw money at this and buy loads of different licenses for the million different platforms that are out there. And that's a mistake because all you end up with is a really heavy license bill and no cultural adoption. So Jess's point around the kind of training side of things is so vital, because I think the question goes further than in terms of being empowered and equipped. It's also not overwhelmed by AI, because it can be really overwhelming. So we always advocate for sort of starting small. So looking at sort of tangible things that you can kind of influence within your business in terms of productivity and applying AI to that, rather than just a broad brush of we bought a corporate ChatGPT license, go and make things.
Go play with it. Cool, thank you. We're going to move on to some, we're moving in this direction anyway, which is great, into some kind of actual examples. So we've kind of set the scene on some of the fundamentals. Let's look at some examples of how your agency is using AI, making an impact within your agency, or indeed on your clients' business outcomes and the productivity around your services. So I'm actually going to start with Joe, and if you could share some examples about how you're using AI to speed things up, create more productivity, deliver better outcomes for your clients, and so forth.
Yeah, so apologies. So as Jessica said, we've got engineers here, and so obviously the productivity we've seen increase across the development side of things. So that has come as sort of a natural update to some of the software that we use. It's just naturally got more productive, and we've noticed the benefits of that. But in terms of actual content production that we do for clients, that has increased rapidly. It's also helped us navigate some quite tricky sort of creative situations that we've got into, which come up with various creative projects. A recent one was a photo shoot for a rebrand. Things changed within the business and budgets had to be moved, and we no longer had the budget allocated to do a photo shoot, for example. Moving quickly to try and find the right solution was still very important. We got the shots. Obviously, people talked about AI, but then this was in the start of the year. And what I've noticed is that one reason why you need to not do the carpet bombing approach, which we just talked about, is that you need to approach it carefully because things change so quickly. And during some of the projects, I've never had it before, where the technology jumps in the middle of like a 2-month project, and suddenly what you're working on, there's a better way to do it, and you need to really think carefully about, okay, do we stick with what we're going to do and carry on and get it complete? And what we did with this client is we actually recreated all the creative that we were going to do, changed the art direction slightly, and recreated everything in AI. It wasn't a quicker process, but it was a cheaper process. So that was one of the trade-offs that had to be made for this. Photographer that we were going to work with for the shoot came on board the project. And now I think that was a really important thing about still involving that person with the expertise in the lighting, the texture, the positioning, that all those sort of details. It wasn't about handing that off to a machine to sort of come back and give us that. We still use the expertise of that, and that's really important. I think finding those people to work with who understand and get it and are willing to adapt and change their processes, and they sort of see the positivity of it. And the particular photographer that we used, very forward thinking, jumped on board immediately, saw the opportunity. We created this fantastic suite of tools. So we had to we using people, so we had to train our own models to get exactly what we wanted. A lot of art direction phases. So it wasn't, when we first mentioned the solution to the client, I think there was a bit of sort of training exercise that had to happen, because they thought, this is great, we're going to get the pictures tomorrow. And it wasn't as simple as that. To get the real quality that you look for, that production output, we had to do a lot of work behind the scenes to do that. But in the terms of the photo shoot, it's still a lot cheaper than locations and actors and props and lunch and all that sort of stuff.
Your productivity gains, you're seeing them in the cost breakdown of actually delivering a quality outcome. It sounds like you're finding AI creatively liberating, not threatening to your business.
Absolutely. I think it's definitely. I think one of the routes that you could look at was just going by stock imagery, and that hampers us in terms of what we want to deliver on an art direction sort of level. We have to find something that kind of fits with what we're hoping for, rather than this is our vision and this is what we want to achieve. So how can we do that? AI is going to help us do that, and it's going to help us do it in a way that.
And you made a very interesting point. I think just one to kind of pick up on very quickly is that it's not speedy at the beginning, because you need to train the model to actually deliver the quality outcome you're looking for. So the model has to learn what good looks like, and then it can make a contribution, and then you start to see the gains. Is that a fair summary?
Yeah, absolutely. The benefit obviously now is we've got that model that's trained. So reshoot, if you will, is a very quick process. But there was still human hours put in after that as well. There was retouching and the usual things that you normally get with a photo shoot to get that level of quality. But there was definite cost savings as part of that.
No, thanks, Joe. That's very helpful. Jessica, so lots of AI case studies, I'm sure. There's an award-winning project from Martin Lewis, which I know you guys have done, but maybe you can bring to life some of the ways you're using it to actually benefit yourselves and clients.
Sure. Well, I'll talk about the Martin Lewis, because we built Martin Lewis in your pocket. And for anyone on the call who maybe isn't UK based, Martin Lewis is a bit of a UK legend. He's like the Robin Hood of personal finance, and he's all about tips to save money. Every week you get like, these are the best bank account details. This is how you can go after the big corporates. So we were already working with Martin and Money Saving Expert, which is the platform we built and maintain their mobile app, there was this huge database of content, as you can imagine, and search is fine, but actually it wasn't, it was immediately obvious. Well, actually, if we created a Gen AI version and put Martin Lewis in people's pocket, that could be really, really powerful. So we actually, one of the key points in this is you can do this stuff really quickly. So actually one of our director of technology, over a weekend, I think he quickly was able to create a proof of concept, because we had access to the data to actually show what's possible. Because I think that's the thing with things are new like this, it's hard to even imagine what this thing could look like. And this is going back about a year now, so this was still where things were still quite early. So we had to show the client, look, this is what we mean, this is what's possible, to get their buy-in. In terms of if I think about then what made that successful, I think not losing sight of the things that you would do in any design process. So we took a user-centered approach where we really thought about how do we make sure we are creating something that's genuinely useful and meeting the needs of the users of the platform. How do we make it personalized for them so that the experience that they're getting, which is enabled by this amazing technology, is still something that they want to use and come back to. I think partnership and trust with the client, with a money saving expert was also key, because when we were like, we should do this, you can imagine there was, again, lots of questions at that point about security. Are people going to use it? Is this just a fad? But they trusted us that we're like, no, no, this is really going to work. I think also from a brand perspective, really understanding the client's business and their brand, and actually what that meant to their users, again, was really key to then creating something that was genuinely useful for the brand, and just doing it quickly. We could have spent months thinking about how we were going to do it. Actually, just creating a proof of concept, testing it, and then moving on meant that they went out with something pretty quickly, and then
Oh, very
evolved it.
cool. So for
Yeah,
the
it's pretty
listeners,
cool.
just to bring Martin Lewis in your pocket to life a little bit for the listeners, how would it actually work? And how is the AI helping it to work?
So you could go in and ask a question like, um, I'm struggling to pay my gas and electricity bill.
Yeah,
Um, what are like, what can I do? And it will come back with in human language that people can then connect with, and then provide you with content that is helpful for you. So rather than you have to then go and figure out, like maybe go onto the website and kind of know what you're looking for, or go and find an article that might include, you can just ask the question. So again, it's making it really, really human. Or I want to set up, I have two children, and I want to help them I want to save something for when they're grown up. Right. And then it will actually be able to come back with, okay, here is some information about a junior ISA. This is what a junior ISA is. So it's just really humanizing, and making the experience, much easier for people to come at it. And, I think Stuart, you mentioned about, people's, like, where people's heads are at when they're thinking about these things. You don't necessarily know how to do a really kind of sophisticated search. You just want to ask the question,
yeah.
and also from a brand perspective, Martin Lewis, for those of you that have seen him in action, he has a particular style. He's very human, very direct. He talks like a million miles an hour. But it was to try and again bring that humanity into this product. I think was really important from a brand perspective as well.
So the AI was obviously returning useful information in a human accessible way.
Yeah.
Was also doing it in a way which, would you say it mimicked Martin Lewis, or was it a bit deeper than that?
I don't know if we went as far as like tone of voice for Martin, but certainly the content as it existed was very much in the brand's tone of voice. So
Yeah,
very, no
in his style.
nonsense, no fluff,
So,
supportive, enabling. Uh-huh. But
and
yeah,
an interesting
you
other
could,
thing you mentioned, Jessica, is how quickly
mhm.
you were able to stand it up. You seem to be able
Yeah,
to get it to market as a proof of concept, as a prototype relatively quickly,
yes.
and I think safely as well. I think that's the other AI concern that clients might have, that it could start, you know, it could start kind of coming up with odd answers. That's the thing which GPT has often been accused of, when it fantasizes or about things. But in this instance, it was quite, it was successful.
It was, yeah. I mean, and we were, you absolutely have to put security in the center. That was kind of a key
Yeah,
concern from the client. All of our clients that we're talking to, who we're talking to about AI, um, and even within our business, when we've rolled out Gemini, we've locked it down so that it's just our data within it,
yeah,
so that also when we're telling clients that we're using it, they can be confident that we're not, when we're anything that we're using Gemini in the context of delivering work for clients, we've locked it down. We can give them that
yeah.
confidence. Yeah.
Well, that's another key message is, I think clients can safely experiment, prototype, get
Yeah,
these things to
absolutely.
market, learn, and collect feedback from real customers. So
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
good.
and just and test it. Test it with customers,
Yeah,
test it in the market.
super. So Stuart, last but not least, you were riffing earlier about how AI can bring together qual and quant, and you mentioned the fact that it's going to disrupt surveys. Maybe you could expand on some of that and how you're using
Yeah, I
AI
mean,
in business in that
I think it's
regard.
important. I think it's important to remember in this as well, like AI being used not just to create output, but actually to kind of refine input. And like for us, that's really important. I mean, we use it end to end. I was joking with the team the other day that I've just got back off paternity leave, and before I went on paternity leave, in terms of standing things up quickly, as Jessica said, I basically like compartmentalized the bits of my job that a robot could probably do. Like one thing, I'm one of the founders of the business. I therefore have an awareness of every single project we've ever delivered. So naturally, the new biz team are going to come to me and ask, have we done anything in this? I was like, well, that's quite easy for us to build a library of describing everything that we've kind of ever worked on, which I did over time, having a conversation with ChatGPT, which seems really unnatural, but is the most natural thing. And I built up a library that is in a custom GPT that we can search. So the team can then go out and kind of go, we need to know if we've done any studies with IFAs in UK doing pensions specifically, for example, and it will return a list of like all the projects we've done, and you can kind of interrogate it. So I'm kind of replacing myself in a lot of ways. But in terms of the actual research process, like that input piece I'm talking about is really important. Market research as an industry has a real problem with fraud. So in terms of like panel-based research and quant, we've used a lot of AI to try and get through that. I mean, if even if with like basic testing, we're talking as much as kind of like 40% of traffic coming into a lot of studies is fraudulent, is bot, is
Yeah.
bad act, is just not good data, which means bad decisions out the back of that. So we have things like discrete sort of facial identification in studies. So when you log in and do one of our surveys, very quickly and completely in a non-obstructive way, so it doesn't impact the completion rates and experience, your face is mapped. That data is not stored. It sounds freaky, but it's done in a very kind of comfortable way. But what that means is I'm able to understand if you are who you say you are from a demographic perspective, because I can recognize your face with a quite high degree of accuracy. I can check that you're a person. I can check that you've not been in the study before. So the data that we're getting in is actually saving us a lot of time in the cleaning stage, and the confidence we can have in that data is a lot higher. And this is all kind of
Yeah.
new stuff. It's fairly new to market. And then in terms of the actual research itself, as I said before, the way we're able to conduct research is totally different. So we're able to work and do kind of system 1 and system 2 testing on things. So again, we have cameras everywhere. We're very comfortable with this as a mechanism of talking. It's one of the only positives of COVID is this is now weirdly natural to do. So in research, it's the same. So I can now, we have tools that we've built internally, again, that took literally a matter of days to stand up, which historically would have been a whole 6 month to 2 year development cycle. Literally took, the prototype was ready in 4 hours. The product was rolled out in like 2 days. And what
That's
it is we
insane.
basically, all of our call footage we can upload into our systems, and it's mapping facial responses using open source recognition techniques that kind of map face points. So we can see in multiple ways, even from an insight perspective, we can see kind of non-verbal cues about how people are reacting to a concept, but also we use it to refine our discussion guides. So one of the big things we look out for is boredom. So if one of our researchers is talking and a participant is kind of hitting those boredom scores quite a lot when we're doing a pilot of our study, we then go back and look at our discussion guide and go, what about this is boring? Because obviously we're losing people's attention. And if we're not doing impacting the data that we're having. So there's just, I mean, I don't want to take up too much time, but in terms of output as well, we use it in terms of how quickly we can kind of stack and analyze very large data sets, how we can combine them. We create dashboards that have dynamic kind of commentary within them. So historically, if we submit a deck and go, this is the answer you've been looking for, and we present that to a client, that was the end of the story. We don't want it to be that, because data can be interrogated. So the dashboards that we create are filterable by all of the things that we do studies in. And we create commentary within those dashboards, which updates itself based on the context changing within the dashboard. So what that means is when we supply a presentation, we have a narrative set to it. but also if the client comes in and goes, right, that's all well and good, but how does that story change for Gen Z? If they apply a Gen Z filter to that, it then updates all the output and makes it relevant to that. And again, from their perspective, when they're presenting stuff internally, that just speeds up stuff so much because they're not coming back to us and we're going, oh, we can have that data for you in probably give us a week so we can analyze it and then we can make you a new deck and we can send it to you. It's instant. So it's totally changing the way that people interact with Insight and just kind of
that's incredible. So the gains are across the whole park in your
end to end. Yeah, completely.
Right from the data collection.
Yeah.
So data collection becomes more efficient. You cut out bad data.
Yeah.
Earlier on. Once you've got the data sets, you can mix and match between quant and qual, it feels like. You can interrogate it through different lenses, and then you can filter it on different audience types.
Yeah. It's unbelievable. And this is all that, I mean, that end-to-end piece is all changes we've made in the last 6 months. Like we've been playing a lot, and I think play is a really important word because it seems to be like it's often used as the opposite of work, but a lot of this is play. It's getting in, breaking it, testing it out. We've been doing a lot of that to make sure that we are dealing with stable environments before we commit it to processes. But in terms of like hard commitments to our process, it's really been the last 6 months where there's been this kind of like proper integrated approach to it. Before that, it was just more of a beta.
And the other thing I'm hearing from you guys, I mean, the pioneering experimentation you're doing with AI in your respective agencies, which have got different focus, different areas. So you've got Joe with digital and design, Jessica with innovation, design and engineering, you guys with insight and business impact and so forth. You're able to kind of pick up AI at relatively low cost because it's accessible now as a set of tools, and start to look at your use cases in your own areas and start to implement it very quickly and reimagine your services, your products quite quickly around the AI tooling. Is that a fair comment?
Yeah. I mean, for us, I think it's bringing more creativity into what we do. I think market research has really struggled creatively beyond just sort of data visualization. And it's sometimes quite hard to get people excited about a graph. You won't be surprised to hear. So it's making sure that we can create meaningful output that leads to like effective application. So like the first stage of our process is called application because we think about what is the output we can produce, not what methodology we're using. There's a finite way of doing methodology. What's really interesting is the infinite possibility of the creative output. Like we're doing things now where when we do segmentation studies, we'll do video content. So historically, I've always made videos as part of digital agencies as pitches. Like you kind of the majority of the pitch budget that nobody quantifies because it's scary was spent on doing a flashy video which visualized a future state for a business. I'm not even exaggerating when I say that it takes us, like we will basically, the way it will work is we'll feed some sort of research information, like statistics, graphs, whatever it is, into an engine, anonymized, so it's not kind of any security risks and it's in a secure environment. We will then use that to generate a script. We will feed that script into an AI engine that generates a voiceover. We will then use Canva to build a video, and it's done and dusted within 5 or 6 hours. And that was weeks of work before. The amount of voiceover studios I've sat in, tearing my hair out, what's left of it, of like waiting for a voiceover artist to kind of nail it, is now us tinkering with an AI voice, which is completely, to my mind, indistinguishable from what we did before, which is a shame for that industry. But to the point made before, like it's a luxury to be able to have the budgets and the time to do that. And that was getting in the way of creative output, whereas now the kind of possibility is endless for us.
Well, that's amazing. I mean, I'm old enough to have worked pre-internet, when everything was analog, then internet, where everything was more efficient, and now this AI revolution is another step change in terms of how jobs can get done, and you can kind of produce really high quality outputs by the sounds of it, Stuart. relative ease, and just using your imagination and how you choose to interpret the data. It's amazing. Before we move on to the next question, Jessica or Joe, anything to add on how you're just feeling about AI in your businesses and the sense of it and the sense of the journey and where it might go?
I can answer first.
Yeah.
Excited, I think. Genuinely, people are really, I think as people are starting to get their head around it, and it's really important that people don't worry, as we've talked about, are not concerned about what it's going to mean for their roles. But yeah, I think so. And I think what we're finding is, that flywheel. So once people start using it, and then they're like, oh, hold on a minute. Example from this, a personal example, I was prepping for a probation review, and we use an HR system, and I'd outputted all the feedback from everybody that I'd gone out to get some feedback from. It spat out in a PDF. It was 31 pages long, and I needed to then deliver that feedback and then summarize it and pop it back into the HR system. Now, that would have taken me like 2 or 3 hours to do it, and it would have been really boring as well. But because I was able to pop that into, it was ChatGPT actually, because it was a PDF. Gemini at that point couldn't take PDFs, and just ask it to summarize it. Obviously, literally, it was in seconds. And then what I was able to do is to say, because it was a bit too generic, I was able to say, okay, for each point, can you pull out a specific example to evidence the point? And it went in and pulled out the exact example. So referenced a project, referenced, it was just mind blowing. So I was doing it for the first time. So it took me about 20 minutes, but it saved me hours. And so after that, I was like, okay, wow, right. What else can I point this at as a tool that's going to help me? So yeah, that's exciting.
I think that's the interesting thing. It's instant, isn't it? It's an instant kind of gain. You can see, as you say, 20 minutes later, you're going, wow. How about you, Joe? Any views or opinions on where this might take you guys? You're on mute, sir.
There we go. One of us had to do it at some point. What I really like is the sort of entrepreneurial spirit, I guess, that it brings out in everyone. It's sort of those things before those ideas, which people are scared to say because it's going to get shot down because we won't have the budget for that, or we won't be able to bring that to life. You can as Jessica said, you can make a proof of concept like this and see if something works. And people who would never be able to dream of building a tool that you could use, like internal tool, or maybe there's some software that you need to subscribe to that's never going to get through procurement or anything like that. You just build it and you can use it and start using it in your workflow. So that's a really exciting side of it, I like to see.
Yeah,
being creative.
It's great. Yeah, a great expression there. It kind of unleashes a new way of entrepreneurial thinking and delivery.
Yeah,
just try it. Yeah, and I think the community which we represent at Studio Space, I mean, the agencies are so pioneering. They're always out to kind of experiment, look for what's around the corner, fearless about the future, embracing of technology. I mean, it's universal, I think. And I think that's, there's an optimism on the call for AI, which isn't always the case when you look at the commentary around AI. But on this call, there's a lot of optimism around how it can be used and how it is being used already. I'm just going to change the question then before we go to Q&A. So keep the Q&A coming, folks. We're going to get to it in a couple of minutes. Any challenges or considerations anyone wants to put on the table? The things which you found difficult, unclear, hard to get your head around, or concerning?
I mean, I can jump in. Some of the things we've seen, I think we approach with a kind of natural cynicism, because that's what researchers do. So we were quite early adopters of using ChatGPT from a qual perspective. So pretty much as soon as the first release of GPT-3 actually was kind of made available through APIs. We were testing it from a thematic analysis perspective in Qual. And back then, like it was years ago, a couple of years ago, the amount of hallucinations it was giving you was horrific. So, I mean, there's the massively overtrodden metaphors of it being like kind of a human development piece. So it was very much kind of baby infant stage there, moving into kind of toddler, and like we're nowhere near adult yet. But it was very much that kind of infantile stage. So what that means is it's got a desperate need to please its parent, i.e. you. So what it does is it was making up stuff that it thought you were looking for just because it desperately wanted to please you. So I would be with the team putting in all this kind of qual data and doing analysis and getting it back, and it would be giving you a verbatim quote, and you'd be like, that's amazing, that exactly proves that point. And then you'd look for it in the source material and be like, oh, it's not there. So I think, as you should do with humans anyway, taking the information that you receive and kind of not just taking it at face value is still really, really important from a limitation standpoint. Like, still need to be kind of sense checking stuff. Even the models now with the
you need the human in the loop, don't you? Still,
kind of the more modern model now is still prone to hallucination sometimes. So even just asking it, "Are you?" will make it validate itself again. But it's getting better, like day by day. But still,
it is, and the training budgets are going through the roof. They're passing the $1 billion, which is interesting. We've got some Q&A coming in, so I just want to turn to the Q&A. So great insight into AI. Thank you, guys. And how we can use this in workplaces. I have management in my work that couldn't attend this morning. I'd like to share the recording can be shared. There's another bit of Q&A coming in. What are your views on informing users and staff of initial use of AI in communications across things like live support and general comms? Is it best to be transparent with users and then wordsmithing the staff comms to be transparent over empowerment rather than role replacement? So this is a bit about how we can kind of make sure AI is either transparent, or how would we deal with it? So any views from the panel on this one?
Yeah, I think so. On this, I think there's a view in general I have with content creation, whether it's answers on a help desk or visuals you see on billboards and things like that. I think authenticity is a really important thing. And the more we do move towards AI, what will the pushback be against that? Because I know for years, a lot of people have been chasing various accreditations, B Corp, with sort of sustainability and community side of things. But that's interesting to see where that's going to go, where people talk about that, but then also trying to rapidly use more and more technology rather than humans to do jobs. And I think that's going to be a really interesting thing to look at over the next few years, is how you sort of deal with that. So I think, communicating your use of it, I think, is going to be really important. And I could maybe see in the future almost like a fair trade sort of stamp on businesses who use humans to do certain things, because there will be more pushback as it becomes more evident. I mean, it's very prolific in all the work that we're doing, but I think you're going to see it more and more over the next few years as the quality gets to the right level, that people start seeing it on billboards and TV adverts. And there's going to be something to that. So I think, in terms of communication through customer service, which I think is a great thing as well, because the Martin Lewis app and things like that, I think that's a brilliant example of just making things smoother for people. And I think if the value you get from that is incredible, and the service would never be able to exist in the first place without that, then that's absolutely brilliant, and that should be done. But just telling people how it's done is really important, I think.
Thank you, Joe. Another quick question coming in. Maybe one for Jessica. What are you seeing as the ramp up times for how to get AI usage going in the business? Does it require specialist resources to come into your business to get yourselves AI enabled?
Well, we we haven't had external support. We've done it ourselves. But obviously, given the nature of our business, the fact that we're delivering this kind of work for our clients, we've got an advantage, right? So it's part of what we do, and therefore we've been able to turn that in on ourselves. However, because we knew this was a strategic priority for us to get our business AI enabled, in a really kind of focused and meaningful way, we actually created basically a separate team. So our CTO, we kind of took him out of, because he's super passionate about this stuff. We kind of took him out of the delivery, and he's built up a team of about 4 or 5 people, some of which are seconded in from the wider business. And they have then really focused on building out our bespoke training, which we've put into our LinkedIn Learning we've set it up as a LinkedIn Learning pathway, which has custom video content. And that has then involved our marketing team. It's involved our L&D team. So that felt like a really important investment to make sure that we were doing it in a create future way, and that our team felt that it was for them. But that's been done in a few months. We're not talking about like years to do that. And also in terms of the tooling, I think it's come out a bit in the conversations. It's quick to turn it on, right? We could roll out Gemini to every single person in a week. But we know from our own experiments and that just doing that doesn't actually get you the productivity gains and the consistency in use that is going to benefit the team and the business. You've got to take time to roll it out properly. Yeah. So I'd say, but you can do it in months. It's not something that needs to take years.
Yeah. Okay. That's very interesting. Any other perspectives on that question about how easy or not it's been to be putting AI into your businesses?
I mean, from our perspective, I think it's reasonably easy. We're kind of agile enough to be able to kind of make changes. It's not been too tricky for us to put it into our businesses. I think we have, because of the nature of a lot of the clients that we work with, getting them to allow us to put it into our process is a different thing. So the kind of the trust element, and kind of there's a lot of myths out there because of like this. AI is always going to be a polarizing topic, right? Because on one hand, you can be talking about customer support like we were a second ago, where it's taking jobs and all this stuff, and there's like the media is always going to hit the negative angle. The security and trust thing is the same roll of the dice. You're going to get so much negative press around security concerns, and oh well, why are you like? I had a question on Tuesday asking how you get over the problem of feeding in data from a study for it to be used to publicly train a model. And it's like, well, it isn't, because we have set up our business properly so that everything is under kind of lock and key, and it's in secure environments, and everything's anonymized. And a lot of the headache that we have is on that education piece of kind of working with the naturally suspicious. And that, like I said before, we are too as researchers, and it's good to have that natural suspicion of anything new. But trying to find ways to talk to people about the benefits is all about kind of showing rather than telling. So using case studies to talk about where it's really helped, demonstrating that it's not something you can kind of have a fight or flight kind of reaction to. There is going to have to be some elements of kind of acceptance here, because everyone else is doing it. It's just doing it in the right way.
The social proofing becomes quite important.
Totally, yeah.
To normalize.
Really not normalize.
Yeah. Question a question for Stuart specifically. With your expertise in brand tracking research, what are some of the common mistakes companies make when using AI to analyze market data, and how can they avoid them?
I don't think I think we're the ones still pushing for it a lot more, to be honest, in a lot of cases. So I don't know that people are making too many mistakes from their perspective. Yeah, I think the ones I've talked about before, in terms of hallucinations and trusting in hallucinations. I've gone into meetings where someone has quite clearly sort of ChatGPT'd a market size statistic or something, and it's like, well, what's that built from? Or used it to kind of ask a question of research that we've done, and I can evidence the pathway of how we have come to decisions. And
Yeah.
you can't always do that with an AI generated answer. So it's a difficult conversation. I don't think I have any particular like harrowing examples of where people are kind of using it wrong. But I think common mistakes is just blindly following things, and like I said, trying to do too much. I don't really want to see too many chief AI officers coming, as there seems to be a massive influx at the moment. I think that's the carpet bombing approach I talked about. It's a useful, but whether you need a board level role or whether you need to actually think about how you properly operationalize it is a different conversation.
This is a build on the question for anyone on any of the panelists would be, is this changing your relationship with your clients? Because if you have an AI conversation with a client, you might be, having to talk to a chief risk officer at some point. You might have to go and, talk to different types of people, client side, which previously, hitherto, you may not have been talking to. Has that changed?
Yeah, I mean, I can give you a live example. We're doing a project for one of the largest law firms in the UK, and we are using Gen AI. It's a knowledge platform, so lots of legal information, and it's to make that more accessible, but it's a product that they sell. And you can imagine some of the conversations that have been going on as part of the contractual discussions around that, because clearly they're concerned about, they're really excited about it and they see the potential. But yeah, there's been lots and lots of interesting conversations from that front.
Your stakeholder group may have got bigger as a consequence.
Absolutely. Yeah.
The governance.
Yeah. Even our CFO's involved in the conversations, which wouldn't
I can
normally
imagine
be the case. Yeah.
But I also imagine that once you've done a couple of those projects, you have that you are now equipped to have those conversations going forwards. You've kind of, you know what they look like,
Yeah, it's like anything. If you go way, 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 way back, when we first started talking about social media, we were having those conversations with clients. They're like, "Oh, what's this social media thing?" Even, Giddy and I also remember the days where my first job, I was designing onto CD-ROMs, and then we were putting, content online, and people were like, "Oh, is that safe?"
Indeed.
We're just in that. We're in that phase, aren't we? It's education, and then it'll just become the norm.
The slight difference I see of AI, Jessica and Stuart and Joe, is that the speed at which it can be adopted and implemented seems to be very quick compared to some of these other, revolutions we've been through. Is that fair? Do you see that happening? It seems to be more of an explosion than a kind of
I think
movement
with that,
in a direction.
With that comes a risk, though. I think it's gonna, unless you check it, and like we've talked to loads about trading obviously before, but the propensity for this to create inequalities in a workforce is massive. I mean, we saw it as soon as, like, if you go back to when computers came into offices and all, and like digitization of the office in general, that was a gradual process and took years and years and years to actually come into kind of commonplace.
It was infrastructural, wasn't it?
Exactly, it was infrastructural change and it was seismic, but at the same time it was gradual because you were still limited to do. This is properly seismic because it is
so accessible.
And like it's going to alienate so many people within businesses who do not feel safe, who do not feel comfortable. So the cultural impact of that is so important. It's like, and to the point I made around the chief AI officer, their role should not be about implementing AI into the business. It should be about the cultural impact of AI coming into the business. And
that's a great insight, Stuart. And I think it's still a big unknown, that one, isn't it?
You're dealing with people like the human casualty of this is the bit that gets overlooked.
Well, yeah, I think how cultures evolve and adapt and roles change and adapt to work alongside AI enabled processes and services. I think it's still a big topic area, and it's a bit like punk rock. AI's come in like a punk rocker and crash the party. We've all got used to the music now, and that's an interesting place to be. We've got a minute, so can everyone just give me 30 seconds of your kind of what you'd like the audience to take away? Maybe we'll start with Joe and then Jessica and Stuart.
Yeah, I guess that it's going back to that entrepreneurial spirit about seeing the opportunity in things that you wouldn't have thought possible before, maybe because of budgets or because of time, to give people the opportunity to go and try things and come back. Again, it doesn't need to be 3 or 6 months. You need to approve now. It could be, here's 2 days, go and see what you can do. I think Google have always run that sort of 20% research time that they give to employees, where 4 days a week they're doing one thing, 1 day a week they're doing R&D, and I think that is especially important in a time like this where there's such rapid change. So give people that space to try things, come back, see how it works, and see what they can bring to the business.
Thank you, Joe. Jessica?
I think just don't forget the people. AI is just a tool. So whether it's you're rolling out in your own businesses, we've talked about the cultural aspect. We've talked about the training aspect. From an empathetic point of view, I think it's really important, but also from a effectiveness and productivity point of view, if you are investing that time with your people, you're going to get more out of using the technology. And if you're using it for building products and services for your customers, again, make sure that they are, you're thinking about it from a user-centered approach and not just doing it because, you want to do something with Gen AI. So yeah, think of your people.
Thank you, Jessica. Stuart?
I'll be really quick. For me, slow and steady wins the race. So don't think that something's new and shiny, so you have to put it everywhere. Start small. Focus on dedicated use cases with clear and demonstrable value that you can provide. Prove it and then do it wider. But start small.
Thank you, Stuart. Okay, we're going to wrap up. Thank you so much to Joe, Jessica, and Stuart. What a wonderful discussion around AI and productivity in the workplace. Everyone will receive a recap of the insights from today's session, along with information on how to connect with the agencies, and let us know if you're interested in exploring AI topics further. On that note, the next Studio Live next month will be focusing again on AI, specifically in the world of content and production. So please tune in a month's time. Thank you so much, and we'll see you soon.